They say betrayal doesn't always arrive with thunder, it often comes as a whisper. Mine came in the form of a text message written in perfect grammar, wrapped in casual cruelty. This year's cruise will celebrate professional achievements. We hope to avoid any discomfort. Let's plan to see you for Thanksgiving instead. That was my mother's way of telling me I was uninvited. She didn't yell, she didn't slam a door. She simply recalibrated the guest list and removed her daughter. At that moment, standing in my office overlooking the Boston Harbor with a signature espresso cooling in my hand and a week's worth of contracts neatly laid out beside me, I realized my family hadn't the faintest idea who I was. Because if they had, they would have known that the yacht they'd just booked for their celebration, it was mine. Not mine in the spoiled child sense of the word. Not a hand-me-down or a generous gift. No, it was earned, fought for, built plank by plank from saltwater spreadsheets and sleepless nights. They had excluded me from my own creation, and now I had a decision to make. I was born into a world where power wasn't spoken about, it was assumed. The Parkers were Boston royalty old money and even older values. My father, Richard, dealt in markets and mergers. My mother, Eleanor, trafficked in appearances. And in our house, love came wrapped in achievement. My childhood home felt like a museum with a trust fund. Gleaming hardwood floors you couldn't run on, chandeliers that watched you more than they lit the room. Dinners served on plates older than I was, where silence wasn't golden, it was required. I learned early that emotions were inconvenient. You polished your manners, straightened your back, and buried your softness beneath pressed shirts and perfect GPAs. And for a while, I played the part. Debate team, prep school, internships at financial firms where the elevators smelled like imported leather and ambition. I knew how to smile at the right people, say the right things. I became fluent in the language of affluence, but never felt fluent in myself. My father saw me as a project, my mother as a reflection. My brother James, a disciple of our father, spoke in numbers and networks. And Allison, my younger sister, floated through life on a cloud of curated elegance and strategic marriage. Every summer, we'd gather on a luxury yacht to toast our accomplishments and silently tally one another's worth. Promotions were currency. Ivy League acceptances were trophies. And I, despite my compliance, always felt like I was trying to earn a seat I'd never truly be offered. Until I walked away. I was 25 the day I left the finance world behind. Not with a scandal or a breakdown, just a quiet, stubborn exit. I traded stock tickers for salt air, moved my desk from a glass tower to the Harborview Marina, and in doing so, I began an invisible rebellion. At first, I took a job at the bottom dockhand, essentially. Cleaning, hauling, learning. I listened more than I spoke. I studied the tides. I watched the way clients responded to service or failed to notice it. To my family, it was a phase, a tantrum, an embarrassment. Let her tire herself out, my father said. She'll be back before Christmas, James predicted. She's just afraid of pressure, Allison offered, mistaking terror for freedom. They didn't know that every sunrise over the water stitched something back together in me. That every callus on my hands felt more honest than 100 emails I'd ever sent in finance. They didn't know I was taking notes, building something. When I bought my first boat, a modest aging 30-footer, I didn't post about it. I didn't tell anyone. I named it First Light not because it was poetic, but because it was true. It was the first time I felt awake. Over the next 5 years, I built a company they never knew existed. I reinvested every dollar, studied hospitality, marine engineering, logistics, hired good people, and paid them fairly. Slowly, one yacht became two, then four, then eight. We called the company Maritime Luxuries. I made sure my name wasn't in the branding. My clients knew me, my crew respected me, and my family. They still thought I ran a marina kiosk. I could have corrected them. I could have sent press clippings, revenue reports, or even a simple update. But something inside me needed them to recognize my worth without the armor of wealth. That was my mistake. Because the text proved it, they never would. And now they were about to spend a week aboard Azure Dream, a 200-foot vessel with an infinity hot tub, onboard sommelier, and helipad, unaware that the failure daughter they excluded was the one who signed the checks. Amanda, my operations director, was the first to notice the change in my posture that morning. You look like someone just died, she said gently. Just an idea I clung to too long, I replied. She leaned forward, eyebrows raised. Tell me. I handed her my phone with the message still displayed. She read it, paused, then gave me the look only a best friend could give. They booked Azure Dream, didn't they? I nodded. A slow grin spread across her face. Oh, this is delicious. No, I said, fighting the urge to smile. It's tragic. Amanda shook her head. No, Malene. It's poetic. It's Shakespearean. It's the truth in yacht form. I tried to protest. I didn't build all this to rub it in their faces. No, you didn't, she agreed. But maybe it's time they see the face behind all this. I hesitated. What do I even say? She didn't flinch. You don't say a word. You show up. Let the ship do the talking. I hadn't planned to show up, not really. For years, I told myself I didn't need a dramatic reveal or some cinematic reckoning. I didn't want to be the daughter who flaunted her success like a trophy won out of spite. But sometimes life throws you a scene so poetically absurd, so layered with irony that not showing up feels like a betrayal of yourself. So I called the captain. Not just any captain. My captain, Marcus Miller, the one who'd captained every ship I ever trusted to the sea. Captain, I'll be joining the Parker charter next week, I said plainly. He paused. Your family? Yes. They know. No, and I'd like to keep it that way until I arrive. There was a beat, a shift in his voice. Understood, Miss Parker. How would you like this to unfold? Like any other client check-in, I board, observe, and let the truth come to them. Sometimes silence carries respect more than any words. He simply said, "We'll be ready." The day before the cruise, I stood in front of my closet longer than I care to admit. What does one wear to casually reclaim their dignity? Power suit too aggressive, resort dress too soft? I chose white linen pants, a navy blouse, and quiet gold jewelry. Yacht owner, not yacht guest. That was the line. It was odd packing for a trip where I was both host and ghost. I wasn't sure if I was stepping onto that yacht to show them who I'd become, or to finally stop hiding her. As I zipped my suitcase, I slipped inside a small folder my original business plan. The one I wrote at a diner table while my fingertips still smelled of diesel from morning dock work. It wasn't for them. It was for me. To remember how this all began not with rage, but with resolve. Azure Dream sat like a queen at Liberty Harbor, elegant and unmistakable. Her hull gleamed under the morning sun, a mirror to the sky. From the parking lot, I watched my family board her. Even at a distance, they moved like they owned the world. My father barked at the dockhand over luggage placement, still convinced that volume equated control. My mother floated up the gangway in a designer caftan chin, tilted just so, likely evaluating whether the crew met her aesthetic standards. James wore his ego like a tailored jacket. Allison, she posed for Instagram, naturally 1 foot angled, just so hair over shoulder smile, frozen in practiced perfection. They looked like royalty, and they were about to realize they were standing in my palace. I waited 20 minutes, let them settle in, let them feel safe. Then I walked. Security stopped me as they were trained to do. Private vessel, ma'am, can I help you? I'm here to speak with Captain Miller, I said calmly. My mother saw me first. Her face at the upper railing froze, and then she descended. There was no embrace, no welcome. Malene, she said with a brittle smile. What are you doing here? I was very clear. Yes, I read the message. This trip is for those who have achieved certain standards. And this vessel, I gestured upward with a single eyebrow. Does she qualify? Before she could answer, Captain Miller appeared behind her like a quiet storm. Miss Parker, he nodded respectfully. You're early. Everything is prepared for your inspection. My mother turned confused. You know my daughter. The captain's voice was professional but precise. Miss Parker owns maritime luxuries. This Yacht Azure dream is the flagship of her fleet. Silence. Then confusion. Then the expression I will never forget her mask cracking just for a moment. I believe I'm entitled to be here, I said softly, and pulled the key from my pocket. It glinted in the sunlight. The Parker matriarch stood silent, speechless for once in her perfectly scripted life. Behind her, the cavalry arrived. My father, James, Allison, all drawn by the sound of something unraveling. She owns it, James asked, eyes narrowed. Captain Miller nodded. And not just this one. 8 in the fleet, 2 more under construction. She's built one of the most respected charter operations on the eastern seaboard. I stepped on board. No apology. No vindication speech. Just the steady sound of my footfalls across the deck I had designed, approved, paid for. Teak beneath my feet. Justice in every step. The dynamic shifted instantly. They didn't know how to act. Suddenly, I was no longer the daughter who ran off to play boats. I was the owner of their floating fantasy, their host, their mirror. The rest of the day moved in awkward spirals. My father tried to ask business questions, gauging market viability, profit margins, tax structure. James, always the deal maker, offered unsolicited advice on aggressive scaling. My mother tried compliments. It's very well done, dear, so tasteful, so understated. And Allison, she just looked stunned, like her world had tilted and her camera didn't know how to frame it. That night at dinner, I sat at the head of the table. Not by request, by instinct. The meal was exquisite lobster saffron risotto heirloom vegetables, all prepared by my onboard chef. It was the same menu I had approved 3 months prior for the summer luxury package. Do you oversee all of this? My mother asked, gesturing around. Yes. And you designed the layout, the interiors. I was involved in every detail, down to the napkin thread count. Silence, then slow nods, then stolen glances between them. This wasn't a lucky break. This was a kingdom. My father finally asked what he must have rehearsed 100 times. Why didn't you tell us? I met his gaze. Would it have changed anything? Would you have respected me for what I was building or just added it to the scoreboard? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. That night, I stood alone on the top deck. The moon painted a silver path on the water. And for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt since first light. Not validation, not revenge. Just peace. I had nothing left to prove. And everything to live for. They always say the sea reveals a person's true nature, not the calm sea, but the storm. The one that creeps in when no one's looking. The one that doesn't care who you are or what last name you carry. On the second night of the cruise, the storm came. It started with a subtle shift in wind pressure, the kind only seasoned captains and fools ignore. I was neither. I'd just finished checking route logs with Captain Miller when the satellite weather update pinged. A low-pressure system had shifted course, gathering strength off the Atlantic shelf. What had been predicted as light swells now registered red on our radar, a compact tempest barreling toward our coordinates. Captain Miller didn't hesitate. We'll need to change course. Tuck into the cove near Greyhaven Island. I nodded. Do it. He paused, then added, You might want to prepare your family. It's going to get rough. I almost laughed. Prepare them. These were people who had spent their lives building illusions of control, curating every detail of their world to ensure nothing felt unpredictable. This night would crack that illusion wide open. I was already changing into non-slip boots and a windproof jacket when the first waves slammed against the hull. The yacht groaned like something ancient and alive. Within minutes, the storm was full-throated. Lightning forked the horizon. The wind howled through rigging and radar domes. Waves smacked the yacht like fists, testing every bolt and brace. Then, right on cue, the bridge door burst open. My father stood there, barefoot, robe askew, hair wild with sleep and salt spray. What the hell is going on? I turned steady despite the pitch. We've hit the edge of a storm front. We're rerouting. Storm front, that's your explanation. He grabbed onto a bolted cabinet as the yacht tilted. Captain Miller ever composed cut in. Mr. Parker, this vessel is designed for far worse conditions. We're altering course for safety. You should have warned us. We did, I said. But you've never really listened to me before. Why start now? Behind him, one by one, the others emerged. My mother's silk mask still around her neck, clinging to the banister like it might disappear. James, pale and sweating, doing a poor job pretending he wasn't terrified. Allison sobbing into Bradley's chest mascara, bleeding like ink. And me, I was the calmest person in the room. Everyone listen, I said firmly, raising my voice over the roar. This vessel is safe. It's seaworthy, and it's mine. So take a deep breath and follow instructions. The crew moved efficiently, distributing motion sickness meds, securing loose furniture, calming nerves. Meanwhile, I stayed on the bridge, reading the radar, every dip and rise of pressure. James eventually crept in behind me. You actually do this, he asked, half in awe. I've done it all, I said without turning. Docked in 60-knot winds, hand-scrubbed diesel tanks, fired a chief engineer mid-crossing for drinking on duty. This business wasn't built from a spreadsheet, James. It was built from storms like this. He looked at me differently then. Not as a sister. As a leader. Later, I found my mother in the captain's quarters where I'd led her after she refused to go back to her stateroom. She looked oddly small, curled into the leather settee blanket around her shoulders, eyes glazed. I never understood why you chose this, she whispered, not looking at me. Chose what? This chaos, this instability, this life where nature is in control, not you? I knelt beside her. It's not chaos, it's rhythm. You learn to read it, work with it, but you can't master it. No, I said. And that's what I love most about it. She studied me for a long time. You're different here. I'm me here. Something shifted between us like two tectonic plates realigning. It wasn't forgiveness or even understanding, but it was acknowledgement. Sometimes that's where healing begins. When the storm passed, violent, cleansing, unapologetic, it left behind a silence that felt sacred. As your dream bobbed gently again, and the sky opened like a wound healing shut, the family emerged from their cabins changed. No one said it out loud, but I saw it in how they looked at the crew, how they looked at me, not as a footnote, but as the one who got them through. That morning, Amanda, our young cousin, who had barely spoken, sat beside me on the aft deck with a shy smile. I think I want to quit my internship, she said softly. The finance firm? It's killing me. I looked at her. You don't need my permission. I need to know it's okay not to follow the Parker blueprint. Then here's your permission, I said, touching her shoulder. Tear it up. She looked relieved, inspired even. It was the same look I once saw in my own eyes at 25, standing at the edge of what the world called foolish and I called freedom. As the week unfolded, new rhythms emerged. My mother, still cautious, began asking questions, not passive-aggressive ones, but curious ones. My father discussed operations with a tone I hadn't heard before, respectful, even interested. James stopped trying to outshine me and started asking about partnerships, not to control, but to learn. Allison even offered to connect me with a friend in luxury PR, her tone genuine for once. The walls didn't fall overnight, but I heard cracks forming. Maybe the storm hadn't just shifted our course on the sea. Maybe it had shifted us too. The last night we dined on the upper deck under a sunset so vivid it looked painted. No speeches, no power plays, just family. The messy, complicated, softening kind. I looked around the table and realized something I never expected. I didn't need their approval anymore, because I finally had my own. The final morning arrived like a whisper. No storms, no tension, just light. Golden sunlight spilled across the harbor like a benediction, brushing the hull of azure dream in soft reverence. The water shimmered, and for the first time all week the deck was quiet. I rose early, barefoot, coffee in hand, and walked out to the bow. My yacht, my sanctuary, was heading back to shore. But I wasn't the same woman who boarded days ago. I had faced the storm. I had faced them. And most importantly, I had faced myself. My mother joined me not long after, dressed down for once, no makeup, no jewelry. just linen and vulnerability. I can see why you love this, she said, eyes scanning the horizon. It has its peace, I replied. It also has risk. Yes, I smiled. But I finally realized that a life without risk is a life without choice. I'd rather weather a storm I chose than die safe in someone else's harbor. She was quiet for a long time. I never wanted to clip your wings, she said at last. But I didn't know how to love a version of you I didn't recognize. I turned toward her. You didn't need to recognize me. You only needed to see me. She looked down ashamed. I see you now, Malene. For the first time in our lives, we stood in a silence that wasn't empty, it was full of grief, of love, of something just beginning. Later that afternoon, my father summoned me to the upper deck, the one place we'd avoided each other all week. I found him seated alone, a tumbler of scotch in his hand. He didn't look at me as I sat down beside him. I've spent most of my life chasing certainty, he began. Numbers, titles, predictability. And I raised you to do the same. You did, I said, not accusing, just stating. He nodded slowly, and when you walked away, I thought you were weak, soft, lost. I was all of those things, I admitted. But I was also brave, because I had to let go of your voice in my head. He looked at me for the first time, and now your voice is just a memory, one I respect, but no longer obey. There was a long pause. Your company, he said, is tone businesslike, is resilient, scalable, profitable. You've built something real. Thank you. He took a sip of his drink. But that's not why I'm proud. I waited. I'm proud because you did it without needing us, without name favors or capital. That was the point, I said. Yes, he agreed. But it also means you became something I never expected. What? He smiled faintly, better than me. When we docked, no one rushed to disembark. There was a hesitation, a wait, the kind that comes when something unspoken hovers between people who've changed. James approached me first. So, little sister has been the secret tycoon this whole time, he said, no venom in his tone. I shrugged. I wasn't hiding, I was building. He nodded slowly, then added, maybe it's time I stop measuring my success against yours. Or anyone's, I said. We were raised to compete, but we can choose not to. His expression softened. You think that's possible? I smiled. We just survived a Category 2 storm on the same yacht. Anything's possible. Allison hugged me next surprisingly tight. I'm sorry for the things I said back then, she whispered. About the real world, I didn't know what strength looked like. It looks like sea spray and paperwork, I laughed. Can I come with you sometime, she asked. Not as a guest, as a learner. The part of me that had longed for a real sister blinked. Yes, but you'll swab decks with the crew. She grinned. Deal. Before we parted, my mother turned to me once more. Next year's cruise, she said carefully, we'd like you to host it. I tilted my head. On your terms. No, she said, on yours. It was an apology. It was an invitation. It was love finally translated into my language. As the Parker clan disappeared into chauffeured SUVs and carefully curated lives, Amanda lingered. She looked up at Azure Dream one last time. I think I want to go into marine conservation, she said. Not yachting exactly, but something ocean-related, real, impactful. You should. But will they understand? Maybe, maybe not, I said, placing a hand on her shoulder. But you don't need their understanding. You need your own. She smiled, tears in her eyes. Thank you, Maddie. That name, Maddie, a childhood nickname they'd stopped using when I stopped fitting their expectations. But Amanda still used it. And in that moment, it felt like home. That night, I walked the decks alone. My yacht still mine, my success still intact. But now something new had settled into my bones. Not revenge, not triumph, just truth. And truth, when lived fully, becomes its own kind of wealth. People talk about legacy like it's a financial asset. But legacy is choice. The choice to heal, to rewrite patterns, to show the next generation, nieces, cousins, daughters, that worth isn't something you win. It's something you know. 7 years ago, they called my dream a joke. But they boarded my yacht. A yacht not just built with steel and glass, but with vision, solitude, salt, and soul. Let them call it success now if they need to. I call it mine.